Chapter 1872 Akashic Records. For an entire day, Zhang Yi completely cut off contact with the outside world. Because he knew that right now, there were an unknown number of people frantically trying to contact him. They all wanted to know what Zhang Yi had experienced in the final level, wanting to obtain even the slightest bit of information, and even more so, they wanted to know what had happened to Ichigard in the end. Zhang Yi was single-mindedly focused on recovering his body, regardless of anything else. Those trivial matters were still left to Yang Xinxin to coordinate and manage. Yang Xinxin's first task was to make up a perfect story based on what had been said on the Chernobyl plain. Fortunately, when others asked about it afterwards, she managed to fool everyone into thinking that Ichigard had not appeared because, after accepting the inheritance of the Yihen tribe, he had probably gone to a special space. One day and one night passed quietly. Zhang Yi's injuries were completely healed by Zhou Qi, and he also absorbed some of Ichigard's origin. Now his supernatural ability index has skyrocketed to 35,000 points. This number is very impressive, because according to past conventions, the higher the level of the mutant's origin, the slower the absorption will be due to the sheer volume. But this time, it only took him a day to absorb all of Ichigard's origin. Zhang Yi knew that this was not just an increase in his ability index. Because of the special power that Ichigard had inherited from the Yihen tribe, it had also entered his body. He could feel that he was really different. Zhang Yi changed into his combat uniform. He knew that things were not completely over yet, and that he would face some more trouble in the future. Things had to come to an end eventually. In particular, the Drucker Titan that had finally appeared had left a heavy psychological shadow on him. It would be foolish to think that just because he felt stronger now, he could take things lightly. Even the mighty Yihen tribe of the god-level civilization had to hide in special space nodes just to avoid being found by the Drucker Titans. What about him, who had just inherited their legacy? Zhang Yi came into the living room, where Zhou Qi and Yang Xia were fast asleep. They had both expended a lot of energy yesterday treating his injuries, and needed to rest. Only Lu Karen was in the living room, tinkering with a mechanical life form. Flower lazily lay on the arm of the sofa, comfortably dozing with his eyes half closed. When he saw Zhang Yi come in, he stretched, took a big jump onto Zhang Yi's shoulder, and climbed up, poking his head out. Zhang Yi held him in his arms, and Flower snuggled up close, rubbing his head against Zhang Yi's chest, as if he liked the smell. Lu Karen turned back and smiled, saying to Zhang Yi, "Brother, you're awake. Have you recovered?" Zhang Yi nodded with a smile, and then saw some oil stains on Lu Karen's face, so he couldn't help but say with a smile, "Karen, you're going to be busy for the time being. The first thing is the reconstruction of the shelter. 80% of the old shelter has been destroyed, leaving only the remains. But this is just right. It can be torn down and rebuilt using the latest technology. However, the construction work will be relatively large, especially the manufacturing of those special materials, which can only be done by relying on Lu Karen's transformation from nothing. And after that, Lu Karen will also need to upgrade the weapons, armor, and protective gear for everyone in the shelter. This is a very huge project." "You've worked hard," Zhang Yi said. Lu Karen smiled and shook her head, her face full of happiness. "Brother, Karen is now a mutant of the Epsilon level. This is no trouble for me. It's a joy." She raised her fists and squeezed her biceps with her other hand. "As a mechanical engineer, seeing the masterpieces I've created one after the other is a great achievement for me." Zhang Yi rubbed her head, "Don't work too hard." Lu Karen gave a hee laugh and said, "I know." Not seeing Yang Xinxin, he asked, "Why haven't I seen Xinxin?" Lu Karen said, "Oh, she's next door. I haven't seen her all day. I don't know what she's up to." She pointed to a room on the side. Zhang Yi walked over and knocked on the door. "Xinxin, it's me. Are you in there?" A response from Yang Xinxin came from inside immediately. "Brother, the doors aren't closed." Zhang Yi pushed open the doors and walked in. As soon as he entered, he saw 3D projections floating all over the room. There was a lot of messy text on them, from all over the world, including the ancient scripts of the Huashu kingdom. Zhang Yi asked curiously, Xinxin, what are you doing? Yang Xinxin was sitting on the floor, under a soft, thick blanket. She waved her hand, inviting Zhang Yi to sit down. Naturally, Zhang Yi sat down next to her. Yang Xinxin said to Zhang Yi, brother, what I saw yesterday in the Tianyu palace of the Yihen tribe should be the same as what you saw. But the information we obtained is different. Zhang Yi's eyes widened. Why is it different? Yang Xinxin gave Zhang Yi a playful smile. What you said yesterday was different from what I heard. It's not that their account of cosmic history is different, I think the worldview they described is the same. That's because they wanted to leave the story of their people and the origin of their race for future generations to know before they left this world. They won't actively tell us information that's not relevant to us. But if we ask, they will answer. Right? Zhang Yi touched his nose. That's true. But the time was too short, and I was shocked by the sudden influx of information, so I didn't ask many questions. Zhang Yi had told a few people everything he knew yesterday. However, Yang Xinxin did not say anything because she needed time to verify some things. Yang Xinxin said to Zhang Yi, the past cannot be changed, but the most important thing is the future. The Yihen tribe has sealed themselves for billions of years, and they only know a rough process of the subsequent development of the world. Therefore, they are not truly omniscient. However, they have proven one thing. That is, the existence of angels is an indispensable existence for the transmission of human knowledge between generations. The civilization of the previous generation was guided by Kagago to pass on knowledge to the next generation. And in the period when the species was ignorant, they may have been limited and unable to tell them the whole truth. Therefore, through myths, they remind future generations of mankind. From the myths of countries around the world in ancient times, we can find the same elements. For example, the Great Flood, the creation of the world from chaos and nothingness, and gods with human and animal characteristics. Those can now be confirmed to have existed. Zhang Yi nodded. I feel the same way. Yang Xinxin, however, looked at Zhang Yi, but there is a problem here. If our angels came from previous generations, then why did those underground civilizations try to destroy us after the end of the world? What is even more puzzling is that they may not even know of each other's existence. And while some underground civilizations want to destroy humanity, others have given us help. Zhang Yi rubbed his brow. The emissary of the Yihen tribe didn't say any of this. Because from their perspective, these are all trivial matters. Yang Xinxin nodded. Indeed, I didn't ask about this either. Because there are indeed more worthwhile things to ask about. However, I feel that all secrets are hidden in the history and myths of the past. As long as we can uncover the secrets of the myths, we will be able to know everything in the world. However, that would be a huge undertaking, and it would depend a lot on luck. So, I chose to take a shortcut. Zhang Yi's eyes lit up. A shortcut? Yang Xinxin nodded. Now we know that there are indeed people who can predict the future. This also proves that time does exist. And I have someone with this God-given ability by my side. She said, looking at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi pointed at his nose. Me? But my ability to predict the future is currently only 3 seconds, what's the point? Yang Xinxin said, so I asked them what methods people have to see the future. Brother, this may be the key to developing your abilities. You have the ability to time and space, and you're doing well with space. That's because people living in the physical world can easily understand space. But what about time? Your time ability is improving very slowly, perhaps because you don't understand time well enough. Zhang Yi frowned slightly. Actually, my abilities have already improved. That's not enough. Yang Xinxin looked at Zhang Yi very seriously. If everything is a predetermined outcome on the timeline, a destructive ending is inevitable. We need the ability to foresee the future and change it. Brother, I think therefore I am. Do you remember the words of the sage Wang? Zhang Yi pondered for a moment and asked in return, do you have an answer? Yes, Yang Xinxin replied, the Akashic records. What records? Zhang Yi had never heard of this term before and found it baffling. Yang Xinxin explained, the term Akashic records originated in the mythological stories of the ancient Kermit kingdom and comes from their god of wisdom, Thoth. The Akashic records are the book of life of the universe. In Buddhism, they are called the Alaya consciousness. The Akashic records are not a book, nor are they a physical entity. Rather, they are like a supercomputer that covers the entire universe and stores all the information about it. Everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen is predetermined. A select few people with extraordinary gifts can connect to it and obtain information about past lives, past causes and effects, and the future. Throughout history, many people have been suspected of connecting to it and have performed actions that science cannot explain. One of them was the famous modern physicist Nikola Tesla. Yang Xinxin paused. Now it seems that the Akashic records should be the highest will of the ether, Kagago. Brother, do you remember that dream you used to have a lot? Zhang Yi instantly thought of the illusory sea he entered in his dream. A white ocean full of light, countless white light points forming a huge world. If there is a supreme will, it will decide everything. Beginning and end. The will of an individual can influence a local world, but in the end, it will be brought back to the proper trajectory of the world by Kagago. So, brother, you are the one who can connect to the Akashic records. As long as we can use it to see everything that is about to come. Even if we cannot change the cycle of human civilization, at least we can protect the people around us as much as possible. And I think that Emperor Indra is also a link to the Akashic records. Zhang Yi rested his chin in his hands and began to ponder this possibility. In the past, he had always rejected everything in his dreams. The raving that constantly came to his ears made him feel like a patient. But this might really be the best way to inspire the time power. Thinking back, the improvement of time power also started from that time. Yang Xinxin raised her hand and moved over a three-dimensional projection screen. If you use modern science to explain ancient theology and metaphysics, you will find reasonable explanations for many things. For example, figures from ancient times that are suspected to be connected to the Akashic records. This one is the Tue Beitu diagram left behind by the Tui scholars Yuan Tiangang and Li Chunfeng during the prosperous Tang dynasty. Later generations have proven that it accurately predicted many major events that would happen in the Huashu kingdom in the future. Zhang Yi glanced at it and saw that it contained some ancient drawings and prophecies. I've heard of this in the past, but is it really accurate? It's all in ancient Chinese. Could it be a far-fetched interpretation by later generations? You know, most of the so-called numerology is used by charlatans to deceive people. Seeing that Zhang Yi didn't quite believe it, Yang Xinxin didn't rush to refute it, but instead gave a faint smile. It's indeed possible. But brother, there are a few hexagrams here that anyone who can read can understand. Take a look. Zhang Yi's face looked a little strange. Why does it sound like he's saying I'm uneducated? Yang Xinxin switched to another divination diagram, and Zhang Yi looked at it. The diagram depicted a boat sailing on the water, with 8 flags flying and a group of people on board. The prophecy at the bottom read, "The yellow river is clear, and if the qi is smooth, there will be peace. There is no distinction between host and guest, and there will be no child in the earthly branches. The ode goes, heavenly white waterfalls come, the chitin are not satisfied. The vassals are removed, the young children are half pitiable." Yang Xinxin looked at Zhang Yi with a slightly playful expression. Brother, just guess what it's talking about based on the literal meaning. Zhang Yi pointed his finger at the pictures and words above. This is so obvious, isn't it? Qing, Shunji, the inability to distinguish between host and guest means that a subject rebelled and claimed the throne. Isn't this the Qing army entering the past to replace the Ming? Even the title of the first Qing emperor is written out. Heavenly white waterfalls come from Changbai Mountain, the ancestral home of the Jurchen. The removal of the Fenshi refers to Wu Sangui opening and closing the pass to let the Jurchen into the pass. Zhang Yi looked at Yang Xinxin in disbelief. Are you sure this wasn't compiled by a modern person? Yang Xinxin said indifferently, it has been interpreted by many people since ancient times, so it cannot be fake. And brother, you're missing the point. She pointed with her finger, go look at that painting. Zhang Yi looked at the picture again. What's the problem? Count how many flags there are on the boat. Zhang Yi counted carefully, and there were exactly 8, corresponding to the 8 banners of the Manchu Qing dynasty. Yang Xinxin asked with a smile, do you believe now? Zhang Yi rubbed his chin. It's not really a matter of believing or not. It's just that this Tui Beitu could have been forged by someone in the modern era. He still felt that it was a bit fake. Even though he was a mutant, the most powerful seer he had ever met was Emperor Indra, but even Emperor Indra could not see so far into the future and still be so clear. Yang Xinxin smiled as if she had expected this, saying, I knew you would say that. But here, there is a fact that can prove it. That is, the famous Qing dynasty writer Jin Xingtan once interpreted the Tui Beitu Day. In other words, the timeline of the Tui Beitu must be before the Kangxi reign of the Qing dynasty. Zhang Yi nodded. Does that mean that things that happened after the Qing dynasty were also predicted so simply and straightforwardly? If it's vaguely worded, I won't believe it. After all, interpreting text is very tricky. Yang Xinxin said, take a look at this. She then showed Zhang Yi a second hexagram. It was still the first picture, and because it was drawn with a brush, it looked a bit sloppy. Below was the prophecy and an ode. The prophecy said, with hair on your head, you fear the white of your clothes. In times of peace, a king kills a king. The ode said, in times of peace, we see blood flying in the air. 5 colored banners form the outer and inner garments. The floodwaters are so high that the seedlings cannot grow. The central plains have seen dreams that are all wrong. Zhang Yi was silent for a while when he saw this. This text is so obvious that anyone who has studied high school history and can read can tell what it says. Having hair on one's head refers to the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom's hair-growing movement, so the Taiping army was also called the long-hair bandits at the time. When there is peace, the king kills the king refers to the Taiping rebellion. However, the most obvious part was the eulogy, with the words Taiping and Hong Xiuquan written out plainly. Zhang Yi really couldn't help but disbelieve. This is unbelievable. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. More than 1,000 years have passed since the height of the Tang dynasty, and yet the people back then could see what is happening now. Doesn't that mean that fate is irreversible? Yang Xinxin nodded. The general trend of history is difficult to change, and the supreme will of Kagago will correct everything. This is also why, even if a civilization reaches the level of the Yihen tribe, or any other underground civilization that is stronger than human civilization of this generation, it will eventually be destroyed, with only remnants remaining underground. There are 50 paths in the universe, 49 of which are predetermined by the heavens, and one that is chosen by humans. Only we who possess the ether fragment are the only variable. The fact that humans choose one path means that only a very small number of people will ultimately survive the catastrophe. Yang Xinxin stared at Zhang Yi with burning intensity, and an extremely excited light shone in his obsidian-like eyes. Brother, isn't this just like Battle Royale? All we have to do is become the last survivors. That's why I want to help you connect to the Akashic records. See the future and avoid your fate of extinction. Zhang Yi ran a hand over his nose. But right now, I just want to escape from this dangerous place. We need to hurry and ask Karen to upgrade our technology and build a safe shelter. No. I should say safe haven. Yang Xinxin, however, was talking to herself. That guy, Emperor Indra, we need to find a time to have a good chat with him. One day had passed, and Zhang Yi's current state was at his peak. On the surface, he is a white bishop-level mutant with a 35,000-point supernatural ability index, but internally, his potential has been greatly enhanced. Especially in the world behind the gates of light, he has awakened the dual time and space skills of Blink in the Sky and the sin of blasphemy, which make up for his biggest weakness, the ultimate killing move. Although the conditions for activating these two abilities are relatively harsh, there will also be significant side effects. But if they are used at critical moments, they can achieve unexpected results. Zhang Yi led the people around him back to the location of the Tianhai fortress, and the entire Tianhai city, everyone gathered here as he had commanded. Tens of thousands of people, all elites in their respective fields. Tens of thousands of people may not sound like a lot, but when they were all standing on the vast snowfield, the visual impact was still very spectacular. It felt like there were people everywhere. Deng Shintong and the others had been waiting here for a long time for Zhang Yi and hurriedly greeted him. Supreme Excellency. Deng Shintong smiled and called out Zhang Yi's title in Tianhai City. In order to ensure Zhang Yi's absolute authority, Yang Xinxin's plan was to rule the tens of thousands of people in Tianhai City in a religious manner. Therefore, Zhang Yi must be immortalized, and even directly calling out his name was not allowed. There were so many people outside, and Deng Shintong also had to give Zhang Yi face. Zhang Yi nodded. After Deng Shintong got close, a strange expression suddenly flashed in his eyes, and his handsome face was filled with astonishment. You have become stronger again? The stronger the mutant, the keener their spiritual senses. According to the Yihan tribe, everyone is a manifestation of the ether, and therefore possesses spiritual senses that can detect powerful beings. After Deng Shintong drew close to Zhang Yi, he suddenly felt his heartbeat quicken, and even his breathing became a little rapid. That was an instinctive reaction to facing a powerful and dangerous creature. Nonsense, I can't make no progress at all, can I? That would be a waste of effort. Zhang Yi said lightly. Deng Shintong was silent. What a waste. He didn't get much benefit from going to Fremon's this time. After all, he killed only those mechanical life forms, but those mass-produced machines were not demon god machines, and there was no origin substance there at all. How the hell could he level up? After barely entering the Gate of Light, the battles he experienced were not real life and death struggles, so his strength has not improved at all. Zhang Yi saw his loss and patted him on the shoulder, saying, You will not be short-changed when it comes time to distribute the spoils. You can go back to Blizzard City first, and I will rebuild Tianhai Fortress next. Deng Shintong shook his head and said firmly, I'm not leaving. I'm also quite curious to see how far you can develop the forces of Tianhai City. What he was most curious about were actually the mechanical life forms captured by Zhang Yi. A rough estimate showed that there were about 100,000 mechanical life forms in Zhang Yi's hands. Even if only 1/10 of them could be repaired, there would be tens of thousands of powerful mechanical soldiers. By then, Deng Shintong was afraid that he would have to consider breaking away from Blizzard City and living in Tianhai City for good.